So there's been a story that's been developing over the last couple of weeks, I'd say, certainly leading up to that direct, and it has to do with Metroid. But not Metroid Dread. No, we're going to be talking about Metroid Prime, as there has been this story around a Metroid Prime remake or remaster that's been talked about, and it popped back up again a day or so ago, and I wanted to go over this because many of you have been sending me this story and different comments that were made on it, and I thought we'd go over it here today. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton, and if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. So first off, let's go over here. This was posted up on VGC, kind of just getting all of the information together and some of the sources. It says, Nintendo may re-release Metroid Prime 1 instead of a Switch trilogy. It's again been claimed. If you remember, years ago, we were talking about the idea of Metroid Prime trilogy making the jump over to the Switch. It made a lot of sense, right? Like, Metroid Prime 4 has been announced, but the first three don't exist on the platform that has become wildly popular, more so than the GameCube or the Wii U, and about to pass the Wii. But obviously, Metroid Prime trilogy on the Wii, the disc version, kind of expensive now, and not enough people own the Wii U for it to work out for Switch owners to go back to it, because if all Switch owners wanted to buy a Wii U, it just wouldn't be possible. So you figure, hey, for convenience sake, you move the trilogy over, Nintendo racks up some sales from that and gets everyone caught up to speed. That never materialized, though. I mean, it's been a while. We figured, oh, it was like the Game Awards that year, and then maybe the next Direct, and the Direct after that. It's been a prediction essentially running since then. But now the idea that Retro Studios could be remaking or remastering, it still seems kind of split as to what this exactly could be, the original Metroid Prime. And I guess it makes sense considering its 20th anniversary is next year. We can go down here. Jeff Grubb started talking a bit about this the other day, which kind of sparked articles and, of course, rumors around this, saying, I think that Nintendo will re-release Metroid Prime 1 on Switch instead of Trilogy. It has been working on this for years, and when I first heard, everyone, including me, assumed it was the Trilogy, which would make sense. You start hearing, oh, Nintendo's playing around with the idea of Metroid Prime going to the Switch. Well, you figure, okay, they're not going to just bring the first one. You figure the whole trilogy, right? Do a little remaster, port it over, like Nintendo's been doing with the Switch, where we see a lot of Wii U titles make the move. This one would make sense, though, to help set up Metroid Prime 4. Metroid Prime still needs help It's not Mario. It's not Legend of Zelda. Even Splatoon at this point. It needs some building. It needs to be built up. Some building blocks be placed, and the trilogy would help with that. He said Emily Rogers mentioned this, and I went back to look into it, and I think she's right. That referencing Emily Rogers, who before, about a week or so before that Direct happened, she said in reply on Twitter, last I heard, Nintendo was busy working on Metroid Prime 1 to celebrate the game's 20th anniversary in 2022. I'm not sure if we're getting a trilogy or just a re-release of the first game. I'm leaning toward the latter, but I hope we get the former. That's something that I thought about as I was looking through this. Would it make sense for Nintendo to bypass the trilogy for now and just do, I guess, a bigger remaster bordering on, we can even say remake, a Metroid Prime remake, and release that at the full 60? Would that work now, knowing that the other two titles, 2 and 3, wouldn't be there on release? Because I kind of feel like I would almost prefer just to have the Metroid Prime trilogy just kind of ported over, but then I get to thinking about what Retro Studios could do going back to a game that, I mean, punched well above its weight with that GameCube back then. You go back and play it now, still looks phenomenal, really, especially if you have one of those HDMI adapters like an Eon adapter for your GameCube, that digital port. It looks fantastic. So then I think, okay, well, what could Retro Studios do with the Switch? Because every time they've made a Metroid Prime game, it's looked good, even if the hardware isn't like overly powerful. Like the GameCube was pretty good at the time, but then you get up to Wii, and Metroid Prime 3 still looked really good, even though it was on that weaker Wii system. So having them take a shot at remaking or remastering it on the Switch would be kind of interesting, and could even show us maybe what they can do or what they are doing with Metroid Prime 4. Now, many of you were sending me different tweets and things around this, like this one, for example, here. This was posted up on Reset Era from Nate Drake.
What?
What can you tell us about Metroid Prime Remake? That's
Yes, yes.
Metroi.
I know how to spell Metroid Prime and Remake. I don't need a lesson on how to spell the game's
That
name.
was you were quoted as putting some information out there online. So can you give us any info here about Metroid Prime Remake?
I can. I wouldn't really use the term remake when referring to the title per se. I believe the title is going to be closer to a remaster, though some elements may closer resemble that of a remake. But right now, I prefer to call it Metroid Prime Remaster. And it's a very ambitious project. This is something Retro has been working on now for several years. This is actually the origin of the Metroid Prime trilogy remake rumors from a couple of years ago, and a lot of information just simply got conflated and wires were crossed. But Retro has been working on this since at least 2018. So this is a very long-term project for the fine folks at Retro Studios. There is some external assistance being done on the project, but from what I am told, it is ambitious and it's going to be something that Metroid Prime fans should look forward to when it releases in 2022. The game development portion completed earlier this summer, but there are still various processes that the game has to go through before it will come to market and go gold. But I have seen people wondering, when could we see the game announced? And I would put it any time between the Game Awards this December and E3 of 2022. And I think a lot of that timing is strictly going to come down to when Nintendo wants to slot it in for release next year. And as long-term fans will know, August would mark the 20th anniversary of Metroid Prime's GameCube release. So Nintendo could potentially be viewing August of 2022 as the release window for the game. And, hopefully we do see an announcement sometime soon, if not in early 2022.
You know what I like about this is it actually gives us an insight as to what Retro has been working on for the last couple of years.
Yes, because that's really been the big mystery for the industry ever since Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze came out for the Switch. People have been saying, what's Retro up to? And they were working on another project that was canceled, and they had shifted their focus over to a Metroid Prime 1 remake. And, this is probably something that fans have been wanting for a long time. And finally get to see new retro output on the Switch. And we know Metroid Prime 4 is also something that they are actively working on.
Do you think this remake, just real quick, do you think this remake would give us any insight into how 4 could be shaping up? Just how that, because this would be Retro, like going all out with a remake or remaster remake, basically taking the older one and bringing it up and getting probably a lot more out of the Switch than they would if they just did an up-res and ported it over. You think this would give us any insight into what Metroid 4 could turn out to be, whether it's visually or gameplay or any of that?
I'd say from a visual level, that's definitely probable, even just from the artistic and texture work that we could see demonstrated in this Prime 1 release. But it's really tough to say about gameplay because I would imagine that the gameplay is going to be identical to the GameCube version, minus, some control refinements and quality of life changes that don't radically alter the core of the game, but just make it a little more friendly for modern systems and control styles.
All right. Well, that's cool. I guess we'll look forward to that, and then we can head on to Metroid Prime 4 from 1. It seems odd, but who knows? 2 and 3, they could do stuff with that too. We don't even know when 4 is coming out. 4 could be a cross-gen game for all we know at this point. So could be a ways off there. But thanks, Nate, for stopping by. Appreciate the insight. I'll admit, I would like to see Retro Studios attempt a Metroid Prime remake for the Switch, celebrating 20 years. I'd be curious if they played around with it a bit more, since they would be kind of bordering on remaster or remake territory, maybe adding some new content that was cut out originally, and maybe adding in some little hints and teases towards what we can expect out of Metroid Prime 4. Either way, it's exciting to think that we could be heading towards a big reveal for a game that we played back on the GameCube 20 years ago and were impressed then. Maybe Retro Studios can blow us away again here as we head into 2022. But let me know what you guys think about this whole Metroid Prime remake, remaster situation as we head into the 20th anniversary. It seems like Nintendo's doing quite a bit with the Metroid franchise, with Dread coming up, and then maybe a Metroid Prime remake, and then, of course, Metroid Prime 4. So either way, it's exciting stuff. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.